How often have you taken a plant home from the store and watched it die within only a few weeks? This is actually not an uncommon problem, so you're not alone. In fact, this was something I really struggled with when I was just starting out on my plant obsession journey, and I wish I knew these tips I'm going to share with you in this video back then. It would have saved many a plant life, and I'd also be able to sleep at night rather than be haunted by the ghosts of previous plants. It's super easy to get carried away when shopping for plants, and we often end up buying one without considering if it's the right fit for our home or lifestyle. And I think we've all done this. It's easy to stroll into your local big box store, fall in love with a beautiful houseplant, buy it without doing any research to determine whether the plant is suitable for your living environment. This can spell disaster for the health of your new baby. I know I've certainly purchased one without even reading the tag. A big no-no and a surefire way to end up with a plant at death's door within only a couple of weeks. It's useless buying a Ficus elastica tineke, a plant that needs lots of light to thrive, and place it in a dark corner of a north-facing room and forget about it for weeks. It's not going to be happy. You need to be asking yourself, what does this plant want? And can I give it what it wants in my home? Honestly, if the answer to that question is no, it's much better to just walk away from the plant. Not only is it really frustrating to kill a new plant, but it's also a massive waste of money. At a basic level, it's always worth checking the label or doing a quick Google search prior to getting your credit card out, especially if you have pets or kids in the home. You don't want curious kids or pets getting unnecessarily sick when they take a little nibble of a leaf. Impulse buying can also lead to overbuying, which can result in you having too many houseplants that you can care for properly. This often leads to neglect. And I'm definitely guilty as charged on this one. I've got over 200 plants in my home and I just don't know when my addiction is going to stop. I do wonder if there's a plant anonymous I can attend. Anyway, take it from me that having so many plants at home can be really overwhelming and stressful, as you may not have enough time or resources to care for all of your plants. It's also pretty darn expensive, especially if you end up buying plants that are so-called rare or exotic. I certainly wouldn't recommend buying a Monstera albo on impulse, that's for sure. If you do buy a plant on impulse, then where are you going to put it? I find this super stressful because I really don't have any room in my home for more plants, yet I continue to buy them. Size is everything when it comes to plants. We often overlook the size of the plant we are buying, and this could be something as basic as making sure the thing fits in the car for the journey home. I've done this too many times than I care to admit. Have you ever bought a large houseplant only to realise it doesn't fit in the car before sheepishly taking it back to the counter to return it? Pretty embarrassing. And there's also the problem of buying something for a space in your home that will eventually outgrow. I mean, some of these plants really do grow very quickly, especially if you're giving them lots of good light. The Monstera in my bedroom started life as a little plant in a small pot from IKEA and has now grown into this monster that's far too big for the room it lives in. I repotted it into the larger pot it now lives in last summer, but you should have seen the operation to get it to and from the garden to be able to change the pot without making a mess in the home. Me and my wife were like the Chuckle Brothers, trying to get it up the stairs and into the bedroom again. The point is, just have a think about what the eventual size of the plant will be in a couple of years before making the purchase. Is it going to outgrow that space? A thrifty hack I always do when adding to my collection is to buy small and grow out. I see too many people buying established large plants from the local garden centre rather than buying small baby versions. Where's the fun in that? Not only is it more economical to buy a baby plant and grow it out into a mature plant yourself, it's also much more fun and rewarding. You really do feel like a true plant parent. This may sound obvious, but the thing you are paying for when spending £50 on a mature Pothos Devil's Ivy compared to £5 on a small cutting is time. You are paying for the time it has taken the plant grower to develop the plant into that size. Time is money and all that. So why not just do this yourself? What's the rush? You'll save tons of money and get an enormous sense of well-being. Let's talk about some of the all-important things you should absolutely check every time you buy a plant to avoid the pain of seeing the downfall of your new purchase. Let's say you've seen a plant you like the look of, you've just finished doing a little bit of Googling to check it's suitable for your home. What's the first thing you should check? Pests. Now, I don't want to put you off buying plants for the rest of your life, But the fact is, pests are, unfortunately, an all too common occurrence when buying from the shops. And I'm not just talking about big box stores or IKEA. Nope, pests are just as common in garden centres and nurseries as they are in big box stores. It's because plants are just so easy to pick up unwanted visitors when being transported from the grower to the nursery. It's impossible to transport them to the shop in a vacuum, so be vigilant about pests such as spider mites, thrips, mealybugs and fungus gnats when picking up a plant to buy. You don't want to take a bug-infested plant back to your home for the problem to spread to your entire collection. That will be a disaster of epic proportions. Inspect the underside of leaves and on the stems for things like very fine webbing, blobs of cotton or tiny moving specks. These are signs of spider mites, mealybugs and thrips, and are the most common houseplant bugs out there. Disturb the soil and wait for flea-like creatures to emerge and hop all over the place. These are fungus gnats, persistent pest that is as common as the sun in the sky. If anything looks suspect, then just simply walk away. It's much better to be safer than sorry. And when you do take a new plant home, always a good idea to quarantine it away from your existing collection for a couple of weeks. Yes, you heard me right. You should quarantine your new plant. Make regular checks until you're satisfied there's nothing sinister lurking, and then introduce it to its new housemates. Sounds a little foolish, but it's a big mistake I see all too often. Okay, you're satisfied there are no pests on your potential purchase. You should now have a good look at the stems of the plant and make sure you're getting good bang for your buck. And this is especially important when buying vining plants like pothos and philodendron. How many stems are coming out of the soil? These are individual plants, and the more there are, the more value you are getting. In a small to medium-sized pothos, you should find at least 4 stems coming out of the soil. Anything less and the growers are being stingy. This will directly impact how big and full your plant will eventually become. If there is only 1 stem in the pot, then you're not going to end up with a very full plant unless you propagate it and plant it back into the pot, but we shouldn't have to do this. For non-vining plants, sometimes you get a little bit lucky and the growers have packed the pot with lots of plants. I was in IKEA last year and I saw a medium-sized Ficus elastica with 3 stems sat in the pot. I can't remember the price exactly, but I think it wasn't much more than £10. This is fantastic value. You normally only see ficus plants with a single stem, so if you see more and the price is good, you're getting good value. After this, it's a very good idea to check the overall health of the plant and see whether there's new growth coming through. A plant that is actively growing new leaves, shoots and buds is a good sign that it is healthy and well cared for. New growth is a sign that the plant is getting enough nutrients, light and water to sustain itself and is happy enough to send out new foliage. If a plant is not happy, then growth is usually stunted and it should be avoided. A plant that is actively growing and producing new leaves and buds is more likely to continue doing so in the future, leading to a longer lifespan and more enjoyment for you as the owner. A plant that is stagnant or not growing may struggle to adjust to its new environment. If it's a large plant such as a calathea, just take a peek at the central part for any new leaves shooting out of the soil. New growth should be vibrant without any yellowing or brown tips, and are the leaves coming out deformed or misshapen? If this is present, it would indicate a problem at soil or root level and should be avoided. Many of the plant problems we face all usually stem from problems in the soil and with the roots. Whenever I purchase a plant from a local garden centre, I always pull the plant out of the pot and check its roots, just like you would check under the bonnet when buying a second-hand car. And don't be shy here, there's nothing to worry about. It's a perfectly acceptable thing to do to make sure you're spending your hard-earned money on something that isn't diseased and will conk out on the motorway. Don't go mad and start breaking apart the roots or anything, because someone does still have to buy that plant. You're just checking to see whether it's severely root bound and whether there are any root rot issues. Don't be put off too much if the plant is a little bit root bound, especially if you really like the plant. It is normal for there to be a fair few roots in the pot. We don't live in a perfect world after all. You just don't want there to be a thick mat of roots that will require immediate attention. However, if there is even the slightest hint of root rot, then simply move on, it's not worth the risk. None of the roots should be black or mushy. Get your nose in there. If there's a foul odour, then chances are there are root rot issues. And this will usually be accompanied by sopping wet soil, which is unfortunately an all too common occurrence in big box stores. One of the biggest mistakes plant buyers make is not ditching the tag that came with the plant as soon as they get it home. Most of the time, these labels aren't worth the paper they're written on. They don't even give you the name of the plant and then go on to give extremely generic advice as guidance for keeping it healthy. Use those tags as a very general guide only. For the real meat and potatoes, do a Google search and watch a care guide from one of your favourite plant YouTubers. I'll talk about this in more detail, plus 11 other common houseplant care rules you need to break in order to have the best plants in this video here, so make sure you click on the link.